Gregg Noll rode Waimea Bay with such aggressiveness, he earned himself the nickname of the Bull, hanging on through unbelievable masses of whitewater. Only a handful of surfers actually ride these big waves. Some of them are sportsmen, some of them are nuts. Waimea Bay on the north shore of Oahu in Hawaii.
Hi, I'm Bruce Brown with my friend here, Gregg Noll. We're sitting in our rocking chairs on the porch. Gregg and I go back a long way. I remember the first time we met. I'm wondering, do you remember that, Gregg?
Yeah, I remember you, Bugger. First time I met you, Ole brought you over to my house.
Yeah.
I think you were 15 years old. I was about the same. I'd just gone out and creamed General Veneer out of all the light balsa wood that they had on this shipment. That was the only place where you could get balsa wood. You're wanting a light board, so you drag Ole over to my house, trying to talk me out of some of my choice wood. And Ole's given me 100 good reasons why I ought to part with some of my good wood, and I'm watching you out of the corner of my eye, and you got this big can of sardines. You're digging at this sardine with the lid of the can, and this bugger pops out, hits the floor. Ole's chattering away, and I'm watching you, and you look down at this goddamn sardine, and you kind of look like, well, shall I pick it up, or shall I, just let it go? And of all things, you kick the damn thing under my bed,
Oh,
So
good place.
this is my first impression of Bruce Brown, kicking dead fish under my bed, And at the same time, I'm supposed to give him all my best wood, But since that time, we've been a lot of places and seen a lot of things and had a lot of fun. So I appreciate the help with this film. I couldn't have done it on my own, man.
Okay, well, that's why I'm here, is to kind of lend Gregg moral support. And what we're going to do is hook these little microphones up to ourselves, sit down and watch Search for Surf. Now, Gregg hadn't seen this footage for like 30 years, most of it, so we'll see what comes out. Good luck. One of the best-known surfing shots of Gregg was this one taken in 1964 by Bud Brown at Outside Pipeline. No one had ridden there before. What were you thinking about now, Gregg?
Well, the way this wave was walling up on me, I was kind of mainly just thinking what a long, shitty swim it's going to be.
By 1964, Gregg was known as the Bull. Most people know Gregg for his big wave exploits. What a lot of people don't remember is his surf films. From 1956 to 1961, Gregg made surfing movies. He started before I did. They were all called Search for Surf. What we're going to watch is the highlights of these films that were put together by Dana Brown, representing about 10 hours of surf films to make this version of Search for Surf. Let's start the search with Mickey Munoz waking up early one morning in sunny Southern California. Do you remember where this is, Gregg?
At some place in Santa Monica, I think they call this the Rat Hole Motel. Some poor guy was walking under Mickey there. He figured it was the biggest bird in the world, just flew over him.
Got a rental board there.
Well, what he'd do is he'd surf in the morning and then lean his board up against a fence there at Malibu and rent it out for lunch money.
Here we are at the secret spot.
Yeah, nobody knows about this place.
Who's that up in front there?
That's a guy called Doo-Doo, Dewey Weber, the little man on wheels. I think that guy right there is an old movie star or something called Red Gaines.
There's the enforcer, Ray Kunze. I see him up at the ranch all the time surfing.
And that's Chubby Mitchell. Chubby's gone now. He passed away. Classic Hawaiian. He really was a nice guy. Everybody liked Chubby.
He's a hell of a surfer too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, take a look at what he's doing here in the 2-foot shore break at Malibu. A guy weighing 300 pounds. He's a pretty classic surfer, and he had a heart just as big as he was heavy. Tube Steak.
Tube Steak Tracy.
And Tube was known for his classic Iron Cross stance here.
San Clemente now, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, last report I had, he was giving gospel lessons at San Onofre on a wooden crate, standing on a wooden crate.
Mickey Dora, the
El
cat.
Gato.
You're making some, remaking some boards, aren't you?
Yeah, we brought back Mickey's old board. We're doing a limited edition of 250 boards. There's a lot of interest in collecting boards now, and so we decided to bring back Mickey's old board and try and keep it just the way it was, with the old style glass and the paisley cloth and the, you know, just like it was.
Mickey never had much problem with the crowd at Malibu, did he?
No, I just shoved him off or ran over him. That was his style. Shit, that guy's got a new part on the right-hand side now.
It sure looked like it.
Alan Gomes and Mickey Munoz doing a little tandem sliding.
Were you laughing or standing in the water?
I was in the water, in about waist-deep water, trying to get the picture and worrying about having the board sticking out of the end of my camera lens. This guy's worrying about his jaw here, I think.
There's Munoz. Looks just the same.
Yeah, except he eats a lot of vegetables now, and he shrank a little bit, and he's more shriveled up. He still surfs really good.
Sure does.
Now watch the tender, loving care this guy gives this board, you know, when he hits the beach here. And this actually is this is a true fact. This is the beginning of the flapper style surfing, you know. All these young kids that are doing the flapper, shortboard flapper style, they owe it to, yeah, the hop, flop, whatever in the hell it is. They owe it to the stake. And he does the iron cross here right up the beach, right to his beach chair and his quart of beer.
Mr. America, 1957.
That's him.
You were at your old stomping grounds, Gregg. It wasn't exactly a secret spot either, was it?
No, I'd had its share of crowds too. Yeah, I started surfing here when I was about 11 years old. I lived just about 7 houses north of the pier, and spent logged a lot of hours at this place.
There you are.
Yeah.
I remember in your movies you always used to say, and here goes yours truly.
Going on your ass about 90% of the time. Yeah, I did it again for as you can see. Here I'm looking for a particular piling that I had kind of fallen in love with. Yeah, the kind of the neat little thing here is about these films is this is Dewey Weber riding a board that's 7'10". I always liked to kid Dewey about riding one of my boards, but I think we came really close to the shortboard era here. I think the big problem was there just wasn't enough guys that were capable of really, you know, surfing a shortboard at that time period yet. But
George Capu here with a cigarette in his mouth.
yeah, there's the Pooh, one of the first Hawaiians to come to California. Guy had the typical loose Hawaiian style of surfing. He was one of, along with Big Copeland and myself, one of Valsey's proteges making boards under the pier.
Some of the grommets came across an old, one of those old life jacket dye markers. Remember these guys?
Yeah, that's Tom Payne, and that guy right there was my glosser. I can't remember his name, and Johnny Goodwin was in there. The big deal here was to rub this green dye all over yourself and then go out and get blasted in the shore break and watch the whitewater turn green.
Made Manhattan Pier look like Hawaii.
This is Mike Stang. We had a giant day of it was a fall day here, and the north swell was just cranking up, and the surf started breaking off the end of the pier, and it was impossible to get out. So Mike and his brother and Bob Hughes, who was really a good swimmer. In fact, he held the
butterfly world record for a while. The three of them went out and were doing a little mat surfing off the end of the pier. This is actually, you're looking at the end of the pier straight out. It's a pretty rare day to break that far out.
It's amazing. Guys used to always ride surf mats when the surf would close out, just like this, and then one day after 20, 30 years, some kid stood up on one. I think one of your movies or mine or Bud's showed it. Within a week, like half the kids in California were standing up on their surf mats.
There's the Palos Verdes Cove, and the place we surfed this day was called the Indicator, or Steep Cliff, because it was such a crappy walk down this ridiculously steep hill. Classic old style boards. There's a Simmons. That's Tom Payne, one of the first guys I've ever seen to be a knee boarder. That's all he did was a knee ride, and that's Jim Piper out in front of him. Guy looked like he had a black wetsuit on. Actually, he was just a really hairy guy.
We're down to Breakwater. This was one of the early big wave spots, as I recall, Greg.
Yeah, the Breakwater, along with Lanada Bay and the Wedge, were all kind of well-known winter spots, you know, for their big wave spots. The Wedge is a summer spot. But there's Tim Kelly, one of the better Breakwater guys. He was killed, unfortunately, in a car accident. And they had, for years there was a life-size bronze statue there of Tim. This is Gary Stever. All the goofy foots loved the Breakwater because they could face the wave.
Paddleboard racing was something you had in every single one of your Search for Surf movies, Greg.
Yeah, it's probably, nobody else liked it but me. That's probably why. We're on a Coast Guard cutter here going over to Catalina Island. This is a 32-mile race from the Isthmus to Manhattan Beach. And there was two divisions. There was a stock board division, which was a heavy board, and then a racing board division. They made a big deal out of it, you know. There was a lot of people, and Hollywood stars would come down, and she was voted Miss Nips of 1958. Yeah, these boards are really light boards. They're 18, 20 pounds, thin balsa wood with fiberglass. Some of them had tillers that you could steer with.
And they were hollow, right?
Hollow boards. There's Mike Bright. About the only view you usually got of Mike was the backside. Guy could really paddle. Yours truly. There I go again, huh? Yours truly.
Yeah, right. You're about 5 inches shorter there, too.
Yeah, and about 50 pounds lighter or so. Truly the mother of all paddles, you know. It was like a 7-8 hour paddle. I know I lost like 12 pounds on one paddle. They had the Marine Corps would come down here and on this day and do a little invasion here, a mock invasion or something. It turned out to be a total fiasco.
Meanwhile, back at the pier, the Marines were landing.
Right. The guys really looked good. Looked like they could handle any situation that might endanger our country there, don't they?
The frogman got his gun back.
Sand crabs are jumping out of the breech of his rifle.
There was a big crowd there, Greg.
Yeah, a lot of people would show up for this event for some strange reason. That's Tommy Zahn. I think his record still holds. You know, they still have this race, and his record still holds. There's Ricky Gregg. He offered to pay me a bunch of money to take that scene out.
Purling in the show, Greg.
Bob Hogan, one of the best paddlers of that time period. Charlie Reimers. Roy Bream, another really good paddler for the time. Tommy Zahn. Bob Hogan. Ricky. Yeah, this is a shot, Bruce, that you can probably appreciate as well as anybody living right here before they built the breakwater at Dana Point.
Yeah, I lived there for years. This is Ron Drummond, who surfed a canoe at Dana Point quite a bit. When I was a lifeguard in San Clemente in about 57, Ron was our landlord. He rented us a place for about 12 bucks a month because we told him we'd play handball with him. He had a handball court built right into his house. Of course, we didn't play handball, but he still let us stay. Great old guy.
Well, this is what essentially what the surf rider is trying to do is keep more places like this from going down the tubes, ruining a good surf spot so that a few people can park their plastic boats there,
We're off on another search for surf with Gregg Noll.
Some pretty good surf this day. And here we are at Windansea, and Tiny just got out of Tiny Brain, they call the guy. He just got out of driver's education and had a little scrape coming into the parking lot.
Here's Ronald Patterson getting out of his house, mattress in the back. We all had the old cars. We'd saw the brace out, put a mattress in the back, and live in them.
The Windansea guys were probably the most radical guys on the coast as far as pulling pranks and stuff. This is Tiny Brain, is what they call him. Most important thing a guy has to have with him at all times, though, is his cap gun.
Here's Tiny and Wayne Land donut eating contest, so you could eat a dozen donuts first and whistle. Got his robe.
They were the white powdered sugar type, which... a little taste of milk. Check the old balsa boards.
Yeah. Windansea with, still obviously going on strong today. Peak wave.
When I was a kid, I think I was 11 years old, and they had the traditional Windansea luau, and they'd have 700 or 800 people. This was the big event on the coast. God, I remember things happening down there that no young 11-year-old kid should ever see.
Here I was shooting from a boat. Did you have any kind of waterproofing on your camera?
No, and I was sweating it because that was my only camera. If if the guy screwed up or the engine died, that would have been the end of my movie making career.
Yeah. Sand crab sandwich.
Ouch.
There's Dale Cannon with a big hat, Wayne Land, Al Nelson. This was a classic. Tell us about this, Greg.
The guys at La Jolla, the Windansea gang, were probably the most radical bunch of guys on the coast. They're always figuring some way to, to screw up. And today it was a nice sunny day. The surf wasn't so good, so they got their flexies, and there's this drain storm pipe that runs up underneath the road of La Jolla there and comes out about a mile away. So these guys tracked down, they knew where the opening was, and they got their flexies. And of course a guy has to have the proper attire to do something like this. So Alan Nelson's dad had some old German uniforms they brought back from the war. So they got their uniforms and their submachine guns and their miners' lamps and their flexies, and this is going to be the longest tube ride in the sport of surfing, at least to this time.
Meanwhile, back at Windansea Beach, they're waiting for their heroes to arrive. The sound it made coming down the sewer pipe underneath the city was great. Ta-da!
The band's playing, the crowds are cheering. Just another day at the beach at Windansea.
Yep. German uniforms, machine guns. What could be better?
What else could a guy want in life?
One thing Gregg always did in his old films was to make sure he got plenty of shots of his own surfboards in.
Well, that was kind of the deal then, really. You know, it's different than it is now. I was making films mainly to help, you know, the boards along, whereas today guys either make films or boards or whatever. This board here that we're showing was one of the first channeled balsa boards that Mike Stang's riding here. And we shaped the board, cut it in half, and then gouged out the, you know, all the insides of the boards in order to make it lighter. Like that board we had that was shown there, I think it weighed 16 pounds. So, you know, it goes to show you that we were thinking about lightweight even, you know, back in the old days like that. And some of the stuff that they think is new today, you know, has been tried a long time ago.
In 1956, there weren't many guys making surfboards. Besides Hobie and Velzy, Gregg, who else was making boards?
Well, that was just about it. There was Velzy and Hap had their place in Venice, and Hobie was in Dana Point. And as you can see here, I was working out of my garage, and in the early balsa days, that was about it.
That was like a big deal to get the balsa then, wasn't it?
Well, that's where I had an edge. See, I was living close to General Veneer, which was the source of balsa wood, and what I could do is beat just about anybody over there and scoop up all the light wood I could get my hands on, and you know, kind of get as much of that as I could. So I had a little bit of an edge there. The light wood being the more preferable wood for a board. You know, a lot of people don't realize it, but we were really weight conscious even back then.
Mm-hmm. They were gluing it up earlier, and now you're, putting the plant shape on it, right?
Right. This is kind of I mean, if you look closely at the templates here, you can see this is the early day Malibu board, which was influenced by Joe Quigg and Matt Kivlin and Dave Rockland.
And this is the routing machine you invented, as I recall, that like cut the bottom rocker out, right?
Bottom and deck. Hobie had the first one, and the machine we just saw was actually the second machine in existence.
And it was mostly all handworked except for that, right?
Right. What it did is it brought you a blank more like, you know, a foam blank looks like today. There was still all of the shaping and the rails and everything involved in it.
You guys did the whole works then, right? Glassing, shaping, everything.
From start to finish.
Here's the beginning of the foam board era, about 1961, when you started to go big time.
Well, I don't know how big it was, but it was the beginning of the foam. And again, at this time, there was just Gordy and myself and Hobie, and Velzy and Hap were the only ones making foam boards. And then all hell broke loose, and you know, within the next couple of years, the guys started to pop up all over the place, and we started to get real business-like. And some guys made the mistake even of going so commercial as to fly airplanes around and act like car dealers. Hey, the salesman parked his car too close to the place where they glossed the boards. So guys ended up cleaning their brushes on his car, and after a couple of months, this is what it ended up looking like. Headed north of Conception. We'd heard that somebody made a trip up to San Francisco, and we'd heard there was some good surf. Jesus.
What was that for?
I'm not just sure.
Early wetsuit?
Yeah, probably the only one in existence on that, at least on that trip. And that's a place, boy, where you could really use some wetsuits. It was colder than hell.
Do you remember where this place was?
Well, I think it was someplace between, just as you go around Conception there, one of the first places where you can get down to the beach.
Like maybe Surf Beach or Guadalupe Dunes or something?
More than likely, yeah.
Yeah.
But just look at that water, boy. It's cold as it just has the look about it.
Cute little waves, though.
Looks almost like the ranch.
Yeah, you were, I'd forgotten, you were a pretty good little wave rider, Gregg.
Now, don't break your record and be nice to me.
Every search for surf movie Gregg made, he went to Mazatlan in Mexico. Why was that, Gregg?
I think mainly because there's a lot of partying and good time going on. We try and go down there when there was a, what they had like a carnival. It's kind of like the Mardi Gras that they have in New Orleans. But this year here, there's a picture of Bruce Brown.
Riding on the float.
Yeah, and his true, portraying his true self. What are the little wings off of that? Anyway, there he is dancing down the street too.
Oh, and my favorite, an egg fight. I love those.
Anyway, the story here, the little surf story behind this is...
Here's Gregg and his family.
It's going to get, watch out folks, it's going to get cruel here in a second.
And here's some of your buddies, right?
Yeah. Anyway, God, we're so far into it now, he screwed up my surf story, so we're going to have to watch this guy.
Yeah, he got into the rum a little heavy, and then I think came through with one of the more graceful skimboard maneuvers.
What the story was is this was the first trip to Mexico, and I talked to Bruce and a friend. What was your buddy's name?
Bobby Applegate.
Bob Applegate and Bruce and I took off for Mexico, and these were the very first pictures of Mazatlan and San Blas. That it's the first time the place had ever been surfed. I know I pulled my board out and went in front of the hotel Ola Saltas down there, and people had no idea of what was happening. And got out in the water, and all the Chicklets kids come running over to the side of the seawall there, and they're all yelling "Olé!" It was a big deal. I'd never seen anybody surf before.
This place called Cannon's Point, and I think later you see the obvious reason why with the big cannon on the point behind it. That's a pretty good wave, Gregg.
Well, thank you, Bruce.
Is that you?
You're going to make me have to be nice, huh? You're going to have to make me be nice now when the shots of you come up, huh?
Yeah, and then you suckered a bunch of other guys down there.
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of letters back to Yater and Rick Stoner, Sonny Vardaman. Who else was there? Gary Stevers, Bing Copeland. So by the time the winter was over here, God, we had half of the South Bay, and
here's Bing right here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Bing. Yeah. Gary Stevers. There's a cannon on the point there, and I still think they call the place Cannon's Point. Actually, there's a sewer right next to the thing, and it should have been Sewer Bay or something, but because of the cannon, it sounded a little neater to call it Cannon's Point. And here's Bruce and his buddy.
This is, you suckered me into going down there. We bought this old Kaiser from a junkyard for 40 bucks. The thing was so smashed that the gas tank only held about 6 gallons of gas. We camped outside of town, a place called Sabalo Point. That's why it cost 40 bucks.
How in the hell did that thing ever make it
it was
all the way to Mazatlan?
We had 15 flats before we ever crossed the border. And Gregg made me do this kind of stuff on one of his boards.
I made him do it. Shit, the guy was jumping in front of the camera every chance he got. He was an all-time camera hog.
Anyway, here's the place that we surfed. It was called Sabalo Point, but I think ended up calling it Gregg Noll Surfboards Reef or something like that. So remember, look at that style. Gregg.
Where's your wings?
There's Bobby. Getting it back, we only had like $100 to last us for the whole trip between us, so going back, I mean, it was a major getting back. We ended up doing like 100 miles, cut a hole in the hood, the fuel pump went out, and we sat in the hood and poured gas from a beer can into the carburetor to make it back to the States.
Well, Rick Stoner and Sonny Vardaman and I decided to take a trip to San Blas. It was to the south of Mazatlan a little bit, and the map showed that we could get down to the ocean. But along the way, the guys were getting a little grungy, and we came across this stream, so we figured we'd do a little laundry.
Vardaman's the only guy old enough to shave, probably. Gregg in his usual pose in the river having a beer.
It's a great little camper these guys had. The only thing is, it was so small that there was one major fear: if anybody passed gas, it'd just be an automatic death sentence.
And you needed that down there with the no-see-ums, right?
Oh God, they had these Pichichinis. In fact, I think we named this Pichichini Point. When the sun would go down, these things would come out. They'd look like F-16s or something, and they'd hit on your legs and arms, and they'd just about carry you away if you didn't have bug repellent on. This was a great little point break here. There was a river inlet, and it was kind of a little sandbar build-up here.
Boy, back then, I mean, almost everywhere we went surfing, it was like a brand new spot for the first time.
Yeah, it was really neat, and the people were, it was interesting to see the reaction from the people everywhere you'd go. Like you say, it was we just kind of took it for granted, that not realizing that at some point in the future there was going to be crowded conditions everywhere you went. It was a new surfing ground. The people were all enthusiastic to to see what was going on. And look at this little wave here, endless tube. Well, the islands are always a focal point of all my movies, and this is a trip here that Mike Stang and Earl Moss and I took together over there. It was one of the early trips. These old airplanes were really something. They were the old prop planes. There's Mickey and Billy Ming, Earl Moss and Mike.
Bob Brummel, I think, too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, these flights took like 13 hours. They'd take you a week to recover from these mothers. They were the worst.
That's when Hawaii was not even a state yet. They still had kings. First stop especially early on, was always Makaha.
Conrad, this guy was really a good surfer. One of the, had they had shortboards a little sooner, this guy would have been really one of the great shortboarders. And there's Robert August. God, look how little he is.
Yeah, I think he was about 10, 11, maybe 12. John Severson, he was in the Army over there, and I was in the Navy on a submarine. Here's Conrad again. Parallel stance. That was all real dazzling stuff for 57.
That's right. Who was that?
I think that's Jack Haley.
I'd be glad to hear it.
Oh,
Conrad again, huh?
No, that's me.
Oh, is this you, Bruce?
Yeah, look.
I thought it was Conrad. God, with that fabulous turn, that cut back, the dog.
Unbelievable.
Back leg.
I was trying to get my leash loose. It was tangling my foot. Actually, they didn't invent them for another 15 years, but I was just practicing up, knowing that someday they'd be there.
That was a high point of the film, no doubt about it.
I think that was Jack Haley again.
There's Robert with Buff locked in behind him. Check Buff's act there.
Yeah.
He's going as fast body surfing as a guy can go on a board, goddamn near.
I was surfing with Robert up at the ranch the other day, and his paddle and I just shredded a wave coming in and pulled out right in front of him. He looked at me and goes, you're the only guy I know that hasn't improved at all since you were 15 years old.
The guy's, I watched him last year in Costa Rica. He can still really surf well. I think he surfs better now than he did when he was in his prime.
Yeah, he told me down there he just finished shaping his 30,000th surfboard.
There's Buff again. Buff's going on, 35 years as the chief lifeguard at Makaha. When I first met Buff on one of our first trips over there, he was, he didn't even own a surfboard. He'd never been to Waikiki. He was really a typical shy country Hawaiian. And now I think if you took a poll, Buff's probably considered to be more likely to have the Duke of Hanamoko's position as far as carrying the aloha spirit forward, you know, in Hawaii than any other person.
Yeah, you can't find anybody that doesn't love Buffalo. Great waterman. I mean, he can paddle canoe, body surf, board surf, name it, he can do it. Great diver.
Look at this. He was the first guy to, like, you know, do a roll in body surfing.
He was kind of the guy on the west side of the island that kept all the young Howley guys alive, and then Henry Priest was the guy on the North Shore that befriended us. And
check Buffy's going, hey, brother, get one smoke. He really stays in shape, huh?
Yeah, right.
Dahim.
What's going on here, Greg?
That's kind of a stupid little skit that we did here. It's supposed to be Grant Roloff and Redbeard. The idea is here their boards didn't come in on the regular flight. They're waiting for them to show up. Grant's pointing skyward, so they must be coming. Oh yeah, here come our boards, guys. Well, I guess we'll be body surfing for the rest of the trip.
Ta-ta!
This is a Makaha contest. This is one of the very few contests they had back in those days. And it was more, you know, there was no money involved, just a trophy, a lot of goodwill, as you can see from the looks on these guys' face. It's the welcoming committee.
Chubby Mitchell, Greg's ad, Fred Van Dyke, there's Buff, Hevs.
Yeah. George Downing.
He was the head official, I think.
Right.
There's Moselle Angel, Jose's wife, who was hot in the ladies' competition. That's Marge Calhoun.
I got kind of a funny thing about this little contest here was some of the local guys were really pissed because this year they'd sent an outrageous fee of $2 for an entry fee, and there was a lot of talk of boycotting the contest. $2 was kind of unheard of in those days.
I think that's Ricky Gregg and Peter Cole doing go-behinds there. The contests weren't much different than regular surfing. Everybody was just out mainly to have fun, not necessarily to win the thing. And the winners are
Dorian
Paskowitz,
Charlie Ryan was Del Cannon,
Munoz,
and John Severson. This is a luau that Henry Priest and Buff and Babe Chun and his brother Bobby and Mako Kawa right there put on for us. It's they were going to make some swipe. They went up above the hills there at Pupa Cay and ripped off a bunch of pineapples, and here they're making the swipe, which is a form of alcohol after it ferments for a few days. Stuff can just, if you drink enough of it, you can just go totally blind. This is a spaghetti eating contest we were having. There's Midget Farley and a bunch of the locals.
Who could eat 3 pounds of spaghetti the fastest, waiting for the thing to...
Babe Chun on the corner there's the winner, man. He just inhaled that spaghetti. The Hollies didn't have a chance. They're still, I think they got their second strand of spaghetti down, and Babe polishes his plate completely there.
Oh no, the swipe is done.
Yeah, this is about 3 days later, and the swipe's fermented, and they're getting serious here now about, yeah, boy, that stuff can really do a job on you.
Then the pig comes out.
Yeah, or some Holly that stepped out of line the night before. Little music and a good time was had by all.
Chubby Mitchell on ukulele.
That's Henry's old shack in the background there at Haleiwa. Paul Swanson had a couple too many.
He didn't even make the real party.
No, he was
one of the local kids was cleaning up the beach. Well, I remember when it got dark, I used to go to bed about 2, 3 a.m. I couldn't take it, and Greg, I'd hear you up hooting and hollering, and invariably it'd look like this the next morning.
That's a giant day at Kaina Point. We took the old dirt road around to check out the surf on our way to Makaha. It's Mike Diffenderfer, Wayne Land, Pat Kern, Buzzy Trent, George Downing, Phil Edwards, Dewey Weber, a couple other guys. They're a hell of a lineup for
Yeah,
sure.
it sure is.
Giant waves, you can't really tell. There's nothing in the foreground to get the perspective, but these are big mothers here.
Everybody used to talk about, I wonder if you could ride that. I think it'd have been 10 years later, you probably would have tried it.
I think so. I mean, there was discussions that day of riding it. And then we continued on down to Makaha, which was another 10 or 15 miles, and photographers were out in full force. Buzzy Trent taking off from the point. George Downing right behind him. Georgie and Buzzy really were the masters during that time period of Big Makaha surf.
And Big Makaha, that was long before Waimea. I remember seeing a picture that Bud Brown had in an old movie, a still of Jim Fisher, and I thought it was actually a fake photograph. I couldn't believe waves got that big.
Well, Makaha was a spot you'd go to. When we first made our first trip to the islands, we lived at Makaha and went to the North Shore on the weekends because Makaha would be a little crowded, maybe 10 or 15 guys.
This point surf is rare. I mean, it doesn't happen but every 4 or 5 years.
Actually, it's closer to a 10-year span apart to get Big Makaha point surf.
Yeah, to the really big stuff. This is kind of a pretty big day.
Intermediate size, you're right.
I remember this trip. Somebody found an ad in the paper that said family of four, $400 to the mainland, which was $100 a piece. We went, God, that's going to save us $10 on the trip home. Plus it was all you could eat for 5 days.
That was the clincher for all these starved out North Shore surfers. This deal says, all you can eat.
Jack having the, Haley there having the fruit plate, Mignot snapping, but that didn't last long. It was a major train-a-thon to burn all the calories you could so you could eat as much as you could possibly eat to get your money's worth.
Skipper came out and he saw Munoz climbing up in the rigging and just about puked.
It was really serious to exercise so you could eat. And as the days wore on, we could eat more and more and more. Captain Jack leading the calisthenics. Remember the first meal? We went in the dining room. They said, "You guys can't eat in here because you don't have any jackets." So they said, "Well, serve us in a cabin." And after one meal with like 35 plates per guy, the waiters went, "No way."
I think they drew straws, those guys, to see who didn't get our table because they had to bring so many plates and entrees out. Here comes Bruce down the gangplank with his lampshade on. Looking good.
And back home to California. You probably don't remember you spelled intermission wrong here. 1 year, 2 years.
That's what happens, Bruce,
finally got it
when you
right.
spend too much time in the water and not enough in school.
That was a classic boat trip. And Greg, you aren't going to believe what I found in the attic. My wife rummaging around. From the SS Leilani voyage, check this out.
What's he got here? Where'd you dig this picture up?
Jim Barr, Mickey Munoz, Bob Shepard, me, and on the end, you.
Some skinny guy I don't even recognize.
Anyway, the whole point of the trip for us, we were training to eat all we could eat at the captain's dinner. We're learning how to talk here.
the captain's dinner, and I got the menu from the last meal. And the big deal for us was to be able to hand the waiter this menu and say, that'll be fine, and we could visualize him saying, which he did, what do you mean fine? And we say, everything, and which is exactly what we did, and here's the menu. It's too long to go through every single thing, but after the first 35 hors d'oeuvres and the turtle soup, then we had rainbow trout, New York steak, boneless squab, artichoke with hollandaise or butter sauce, and I'm sure everybody had both. Then we had a bunch of vegetables, carrots and potatoes and string beans and lettuce and tomato salad. For dessert, we had French pastry, jelly roll, ice cream, pâté foie, demi-tasse, and after-dinner mince. And I remember we really all felt very proud of ourselves when we ate it
The bitchin'
all.
part was when the guy'd come up and, you know, like I should have been on Rodeo Drive or something, and he goes, what will you gentlemen have? And you just look at him and say, everything.
Everything. And each thing came on a plate with a big silver thing over the top. I mean, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back now and watch the second part of Search for Surf.
All this title art in the film, Greg, was done by Rick Griffin, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Rick was like 13, 14 years old or something when we did this.
And you paid him handsomely, I'm sure.
Yeah, like a couple of bars of wax. Yeah, these films here are of our very first, some of the very first films I ever shot. They're embarrassing, aren't they? I got an old Bell & Howell camera from Warren Miller, and I was part of the lifeguard team from LA County Lifeguard Service that went to Australia. So we had to learn all their techniques and life-saving, you know, and half it was marching around and looking serious and all of that. The one thing the Australians really did well at, you know, was these boat crews. God, these guys were fearless. I saw, while we were down there, the month that we were there, I saw 2 boats get busted in half. I mean, these guys, they'd take off on anything, boy. But this deal here, they hang a line on you. Well, you go out, you know. I mean, it's perfect if it's a situation where it's everything's exactly, you know, perfect and the surf's small, but you're towing a line, and if there's any kind of crappy surf condition, you know, like the line gets caught in the rip and bellies out, and pretty soon you're going backwards, and the guy that you're supposed to be saved's going down, and the whole thing goes to diarrhea. But it makes a nice crowd pleaser, you know.
Ta-da! Saved him.
Yeah.
I'm okay now, guys, but don't hook that rope to me anymore.
Now this is, you know, we went down there to compete and be a part of the Australian lifeguard program, but this was actually the most interesting thing to come out of the trip here. These are the first Malibu-style boards that the Australians ever saw. Up to that time, they were riding these long, hollow coupe boxes. Tommy Zahn, Bobby Moore, Tim Gard, myself, and Mike Bright took boards down there. I think this was Torquay, and the surf's actually kind of crappy, but I mean, they'd never seen anything like this. They'd never seen a guy take off on a wave, make a little turn, straighten out, ride soup, you know, and have some board control. It just blew them away completely. And Ampol Oil shot these pictures, and then they showed them around the different clubs in Australia, and they just went berserk, you know.
Here they are with their
Yeah,
with
this
their
is
old
the
hollow
style
boards.
of board they were riding up to that time. There were these hollow coupe boxes, and they weren't worth a shit.
Those were the good guys there we're watching.
Yeah, that's Australia's like their best surfers or something. So we left our boards down there, and as a result of that, you know, the rest is history. The Australians went on to really become a world force in the world of surfing after that.
Back in the islands, leaving from The Quonset hut we lived in next to Marion's Cafe. I think the rooms cost us like $15 a month each. Heading down through the old town of Haleiwa. Changed a little bit, huh, Greg?
Got a little bit, yeah. Now you pull into Haleiwa and there's a big concrete surf center and a bunch of parking lots and everything. These days here it was nothing but kiawe bushes and a few shacks. This was our idea of a funny scene here.
Looks pretty funny to me.
Good. You're the only guy that's ever laughed at it. Some pretty good surf this day. Yeah.
Bob Shepard here, I think.
Yeah, that is Shepard.
I remember, though, that surf seemed really big. You know, California kids coming over, not used to waves of much size, and even surf like this to us
There he is,
seemed
folks.
pretty big. Wow, watch this slash crack.
Cranks his turn.
I was going to do an off the lip, but
Trims out.
I had equipment failure or something.
Not bad for an old bugger.
Yeah, I was old. I was like 19.
Now he's got his back to the wave. Let's see what he does here. He's gonna this guy's just going through the Mary Mother God, please save me.
That was a bad rail on that
No wonder.
board. I think a fin broke off or something.
Yeah. Shepard doing a little squat job.
You remember Shepard and those guys? They came from like Wanda or something. I mean, we never knew them on the coast, just knew them in the islands.
Everybody see. There he is again.
Del Cannon.
Tel's going to give it his best shot here. He'll turn back. He tried to pay me to remove this from the film. There's our fearless leader again.
Trying to get that leash untangled.
Hogging the camera.
God, I got tangled in my leash again.
Uh-oh. This is my old pal Henry Priest, and he'd get right in the tightest spot that he could where most guys would be sweating it, and he'd turn around backwards and blow the wave at Kiss. I think it should be said that Henry was the first guy to ever surf Haleiwa, and when we first came over a couple of years before these films here, we'd been surfing Sunset and some of the other spots, and one day we went to Haleiwa and saw Henry out there by himself. This guy was the bouncer. He weighed 350 pounds. He was the bouncer at the Haleiwa Theater. Every Wednesday we used to go and watch the samurai movies, and because we surfed, he'd let us in for nothing. Yeah, this little girl's riding her dad's hot curl board. And the boards were so bad that the Hawaiians were using at that time period, I tried to do them a favor by shaping, I think we shaped 10 or 12 boards all told. It's kind of a community project where everybody helped out. These guys still talk, 40 years later about these old boards. It's a goodwill gesture that went a long way with the Hawaiians. They always remember things like that.
Back in those days, almost everybody went diving, skin diving. Here's Buzzy Trent and Charlie Grimm getting ready to go out.
Looks like doo-doo.
That was Dewey Weber, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys would dive in the old days, not only to to put food on the table, but also to try and check out the surf spots and the reefs and have a little better understanding of what you were surfing too.
Here's Dewey. I don't think this thing was edible. It was probably the last version of this endangered fish or something. I'm not sure.
There's one. I saw one in a museum last time I was there.
Buzzy always got a lot of fish. He's got a big old stringer here. We used to. The locals love these bony little fish, and we used to trade them in at the Seaview Inn for red meat dinners.
Speaking of red meat dinners.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a fowl dinner here, maybe. Pat Curran and some of his duck friends. That's Guy's name's Daryl Boucher. I went to high school with that guy.
Where there's breadcrumbs, there's ducks. Where there's ducks, there's a box. Where there's box, there's a string. Oops.
Daryl Boucher.
Gotcha, you bugger. Duck dinner. I knew there'd be a Pat Kern along the line someplace here. There he is. There's a guy that really is hasn't got as much credit as he deserves, boy. That guy, Pat Kern's probably one of the very best big wave riders in the history of big wave riding.
This was always one of my favorite spots. Did you name that place, Greg?
No, I had nothing to do with it. We were on our way to Sunset one day, and it had never been surfed before, so we stopped here, and guys in the car were all pissed off at me, but it was my truck, so we stopped and surfed there. This is a neat little day. Bing and I had it to ourselves completely. I think they call the spot Jocko's now. Belseyland. There's another place that Bruce Brown named, and the name stuck over the years.
Joey Cabell here, one of the really good surfers of the day. Joey Cabell. The Pipe.
Pipeline. Jesus, we're naming all these, we're seeing all these places that Bruce Brown named. Here's another one.
Actually, it was Diffenderver came up with the name, and I used it in the film, and it stuck. There's yours truly, Gregg Noll. Pipeline never lacked for wipeouts. I can't believe you hung onto this board. There you still got it. No leash, man. You didn't want to swim. The trek to Waimea Falls came almost a ritual. There's Buzzy Bent, Munoz, Kern, Ray Beatty, me, forget that guy's name, Al Nelson, Tom Keck. Every time the surf went flat, it was one of the things that virtually everyone did, and all the filmmakers of the day also filmed it. This was one of the really early trips up there in 1957.
And there was no park or anything. All it was is just a foot trail back up there. Big deal was to jump off of these cliffs here, and the trick is you got to make sure you clear the rocks. Munoz is fine-tuning his Acapulco special here.
Remember the first time I went up there with a guy named Harry Church, and he goes, "Yeah, people jump off this thing, just go ahead and jump in, and I'll give you $1 if you do." So I went up and I said, "There's no rocks underwater or anything, is there?" And he goes, "Nah." And as I jumped, I remember him going, "I'm only kidding."
Pat's about ready to find out here. I think he came about 2 inches from having to scrape him off the rocks.
Al Nelson giving directions on the shallow dive.
Aloha.
Remember that night that Pat fell asleep and spent the night laying in the dirt at Waimea Falls and woke up and looked like one large mosquito bite. Buzzy Bent, who started the Chart House along with Joey Cabell.
Yeah, we took a little side trip to the island of Molokai. We never heard of anybody surfing over there. We got special permission from the Parker Ranch Company to go into this one area that was facing to the north, and we thought maybe there'd be some surf. This guy that went with us, his name's Henry, typical Hawaiian name, Honolulu. He found a bunch of opi'i on the rocks here, and he's collecting them right in the surf line. They're not so bad fresh, but the Hawaiians have some way of curing them to where they're right on the border of, the word for it is in Hawaiian is haona, which means rotten. And that's just about the way they taste. I can eat just about any kind of raw fish, but I draw the line at those things. So Kemp, our Holly compadre here, was out trying the surf. I think he had a little suntan lotion rubbed on his board or something. He was having a rough time.
And here goes yours truly again. Actually, it looks like a pretty fun little spot.
It is. It was a nice surf spot, and I think under the right conditions it would have probably been a lot better than this. You know, we only had the day there, so we didn't really find out. Yeah, this is another side trip that we took to the island of Kauai. There's Buddy Dodds and Bobby Covey, Dewey Weber, and I guess I'm holding the camera, so that's the entire group of guys we had. We built these little carts. We did quite a bit of preparation. We got these little carts built out, and we had some jungle hammocks, and we landed at Willie Airport and put these things together and started around the island. Spent 3 absolutely miserable days sleeping in cow fields and farmers' barns and stuff, and getting chewed up by mosquitoes, and we couldn't even find the water until we finally came on this really neat spot overlooking Honolulu Bay. And the surf was kind of stormy when we first got there, but it had all of, you know, there's a neat point break. We could see the whitewater, and we knew something was going to happen when the weather straightened out. So we were just trying to kill a little time here and wait for the weather to come around. Dewey was big on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Here's Dewey getting out of the rack in the morning after about the 3rd day. He'd just spend all day in bed, you know, and he's getting growlier and growlier and grubbier and grubbier as time goes by, complaining about how I'd sucked him into this shitty trip. But finally, about the 3rd day, the weather laid down, the surf got good, and God, we were really, really stoked. We woke up in the morning to this break right here.
This is probably the first time anybody ever surfed here, isn't it?
Yeah, in modern memory. We talked to the Hawaiians that lived there, and they'd, ever since they were young kids, they don't ever remember anybody riding aboard here.
Boy, now you'd have a hard time finding a day at Honolulu without 20 or 30 guys out. Who's that?
I think it's Dewey. So far away. That's the biggest lens I had, was like 6 inches or something, so it was kind of far away.
Here's the inside by the pier, huh?
Right.
And was that you? Yeah.
Couldn't have been. The guy was falling off.
And the dew.
Yeah, Doo-Doo's at it again here.
Oh, that's the board. I remember that board. He had a patch on the nose with like insects and stuff glassed into it.
Dewey. And then, you know, the surf had so much potential that the following year we came back and with a new crew of guys, and I had a water camera, so we were able to get some different shots. Yeah, the neat thing about this place was the attitude of the people. They were giving land grants at that time if you were 8/10 or more Hawaiian, so consequently most of the people that lived in the valley there were all Hawaiian. They'd come down at night and go fishing off the pier there and bring us food and make music and stuff, and it was really a typical country style, you know, good-hearted Hawaiian living. It was really neat. We had a great time here. That's Chip Post.
These guys were uptown with a fancy rent-a-car, right?
Right. Oh, these were some water slides that we went to on a little side trip.
Is that your little brother down
Yeah, that's my
first
brother.
to see if there's any...
Yeah, we'll put Jimmy down the falls first and see what happens there. If he survives it, then the rest of it will go.
See if there's any fig rippers.
There's the boys' glee club going. Guy in the second, I don't know what he's got going. He's sure smiling a lot.
Your brother carrying your camera case.
This is a little body surf spot. We just wanted to get wet before we jumped back on the airplane. This is back in the harbor at Noll.
Back on Oahu at Waikiki Beach. When the tallest building on the beach was the Royal Hawaiian, 3 stories.
That's Pete Peterson in the canoe there.
And Rabbit Kai on the board. Boy, Rabbit, the perennial beach boy.
Rabbit's probably got more time logged at Right Slides Canoe than any other guy alive. I think he surfs better. I think he's 72 years old. I think he surfs better now than he did when he was young.
I think so.
Kimo Hollinger, another well-known North Shore big wave rider.
When canoes would get crowded, get like 10 people out. We used to go to Alamoana and there'd be nobody there.
Well, check the crowds in the background on these waves. There isn't many people there now either.
This is a place where the surfers always log a lot of time.
Next to, big North Shore surf, this was probably the most cherished moment in all the time we spent in the islands. We hit the Waikiki sands for the $1.25 lunch plate. Guys would eat oatmeal all week long and save up their money for one big lunch here. So
It was Diffenderfer and Pat Curran, Wayne Land, and Tiny Brain.
Pat wasn't far behind whenever there was a inexpensive meal to be had.
No, or he could hold a lot, maybe. He was probably a 9 or 10 plate guy. Nice cheek there.
Story, a little shot in the lap there. TB had, he seized. We took him out in Waikiki and these tourists were walking by and he let out this incredible belch and then we called the ambulance and they took him away and pumped his stomach. 3 days later he was back in the water.
Is that true?
No.
One of the really classic North Shore spots, Sunset Beach.
Yeah, I think more time is probably spent at Sunset if you're going over there to spend the winter. Sunset probably produces more good waves than any other spot.
Yay!
The place can really eat you alive if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's like what, a half mile out before leashes. I remember going out there and never catching a wave, just making 3 big long swims during the day, and that's the day. Just get caught inside, wiped out, and see ya.
It has so many different faces, It can be smooth and glassy and like this, and just really gentle and nice, and then, it can, a little bit of wind change, a little bit of size, and the place can get nasty.
Little family group there.
Yeah, guys are just getting picked off one by one. Geez, what a long ride here. Then this is like my whole budget for the entire week here, going up in flames here on film on this one shot.
As the sun set over Kinda Point, we will have some leisure time activities.
Yeah, nothing like a little cow riding.
That wasn't a cow, that was a bull. Killer bull.
It is a killer bull, excuse me. See the horns. This is the fiercest animal in all of Hawaii.
There's Gregg.
Munoz is trying to contemplate how to get from one place to another without spending a lot of money.
If you run out of gas at Sunset, you could, with a trade, you could just sail to Haleiwa and fill her up. Of course, no one had enough money to fill it up, but
And while it surfs flat here, Pat's trying to figure out something to kill a little time. And
Prince Valiant, Palau. God, I remember you made me do this. I could not get a date after this. They all thought I was a pervert or something. This was a favorite pastime.
yes. Check this one out. Just singed his eyebrows on that move.
Gregg trying to blank out Dewey Weber's sticker. Kimo Hollinger getting even. Some of the crew, Pat Kern, Diff, Fred Van Dyke. Now, Waimea turned out to be a really famous place, and Gregg, you probably more than anyone made it that way.
Well, thanks for the compliment, but
This is kind of a compilation of quite a few years at Waimea. I think the first few shots that we see surfing is the very, very first time that Waimea was ridden. Gregg was too busy surfing to bother to take many movies. Guys had watched Waimea break for, God, how long, Gregg? Several years.
yeah, there were about 3 years went by where we were trying to get the balls to get out and ride the place. The local people thought that it was haunted, and you know, the burial grounds up above there, so it was a lot. It was kind of tough that first day, you know. I mean, everybody kind of had the feeling you're going to go out there and get swallowed up, you know.
At the time, nobody knew whether you'd come up, you know, if you took a white.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you take off and maybe you just disappear in the.
Be gone.
That's Jose right there.
Jose Angel, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Stang, boy, this was like unbelievable.
There's Stang in the background, just eating it, something fierce. Mickey Munoz in front, doing his Acapulco special there, and that was a big wave right there. It's probably one of the biggest waves of the day.
This is later on. You can see the lineup getting a little more crowded.
Yeah, more guys, more cameramen. Who's that guy sneaking around in the bushes?
I don't know who that is. Some little dwarf.
Bud Brown's
Bud
famous
Brown.
hat.
Yep, with his sunbonnet. Guy's got some bad positions in those days.
Oh, those old boards, you know, the old balsa boards. And as time went on, you know, the boards started improving, and boards were being made specifically for Waimea.
And when you stopped making movies, was really when you started riding big waves. So, you know, all the stuff in this film like stops in '61, but you know, I think we didn't start calling it the Bull till probably like '63 or something.
Just about the time I was through making movies. That's right.
Yeah. So all your legendary big waves are weren't really in your films at all.
Well, that's right, because they were down the road to come yet. You know, the biggest wave I ever got was at Makaha in '69, and
Go again in the trunks that became fairly well known.
they were more of a joke than anything else, just the old jailhouse trunks, and then they just kind of stuck. Here's kind of an interesting wave. I'm looking through the viewfinder and it's distorted. I couldn't tell whether these guys were going to roll right over the top of me or not. That's why I was shaking a little bit. There's Mickey Dora. I think that day was the day that they were filming Ride the Wild Surf, and Mickey was getting paid to, to surf Big Waimea. He made a major transition there from, I think the biggest wave he'd ever surfed prior to that was about 12 foot.
Yep.
Guy had a lot of ability.
The famous big wave, Byron Coe, Peter Cole, and Pat Kern. That was a big wave no matter what. Did you really think you had a hope of making this wave, Greg?
Well, the truth be known, I probably spent more time dog paddling than anybody on the North Shore. Thanks, Bruce, for taking the time to sit through these old films. I appreciate it.
Greg, thank you. I enjoyed it. And Dana Brown's the one that did all the work. He sat there for several months. We sat here for a few hours, so I'd like to thank him.
Aloha to both you guys.
Okay, Brown, Noll, final narration. Take 10.
Thanks, Bruce, for taking the time to sit through these old movies with me. I appreciate it. I feel like... I know we can do a good one.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Okay, let's do the opening, then we could. I think that one, the first one of those, was good.